Hello guys. So we've looked at in our previous videos we've looked at the for loop, the repeat loop, and now to complete that of the lessons on loop, we'll be looking at the final one, which is while loop. Okay. So um after I complete this lesson, basically you would have to choose which loop you want to go to, or if probably you're working with a particular you're carrying out a particular task and the nature of the task demands you to use any of the three loops we've looked at, you can go ahead and do that as well. And also, I'm going to try as much as possible to keep this tutorial short, because basically you are going to do a lot of work. Okay, I'm just going to give you some few hints here and there, and then you'll try and practice. Okay, you'll try and reproduce the same thing, okay, like we did for repeat and for loop. You could create a data frame like we did, and you could use the while loop, okay, to help you grade the student. Okay, so yeah, so as you can see here, this is the basic syntax for while loop. Okay, so you have the while, and once you pull out this, you have the condition. Now this condition must always evaluate to true. If the condition evaluates to true, the chunk of code here will run. Okay, the task you want to carry out will run. The moment the condition is false, the code, okay, or the loop stops. Okay, the moment the condition is false, the loop stops. So this basic syntax you saw here is just this. When I type while, just take it from the options. Okay, this is the basic syntax, and whatever condition you want to type goes here, and a chunk of code comes here. Okay, so let's try one example or two examples, and based on those examples you get a fair idea of what we're looking at, and I'll call this lesson and I'll bring this lesson to a close. Then you would go and try your hands, okay, on it. Okay, so our first example, let's say example one. Okay, so our first example is that we want to we want to print some numbers, let's say 1 to 50. Okay, just numbers 1 to 50. It shouldn't be more than 50. Okay, so we could go with the while, and we could put the condition that always evaluates to true, so that when that condition now evaluates to false, okay, the while loop stops. Now we said we want to print numbers 1 through to 50, okay, meaning that it shouldn't exceed 50. So now uh let's define some objects, okay, which will help us to carry out this. Okay, or let's create some objects which will help us carry out this. So I'm creating an object called n, and I'm going to assign a value of 1 to it. So uh, create an object n, and assign I'm assigning the initial value to it. So assign an initial value of 1. Okay, so after creating the object n, now I'm going to put it here. We said we want to print numbers, and those numbers we're going to print should not be greater than 51. Okay, in other sense, they should be less than what? 51. So we're going to say when n is less than 51, okay, what should be done? We're going to print n, but bear in mind n in its initial state is just 1. okay, and we want numbers 1 to 51. So it means that we need to update anytime n, okay, the n value goes into the condition and this is run, we need to update the value of n so that when it goes here, okay, the same thing comes out as an output. Okay, so we want to update n. So to update n, we're going to say n should be n plus 1. So meaning that since, for instance, the first point n is 1, it's going to print 1, and then come here, 1 is going to be added to the value of n, making it 2, and it will be stored in an object called n, and the whole process repeats. Okay, so yeah, so here task to carry out when condition is true, and here we're trying to update the let me just put it the parameter that, or yeah, the parameter let me see the parameter. It's just helping us to, yeah, so, or update the object sometimes this is update the object n. Okay, yeah, so observe what happens in the console when I run this. You will see that the while loop ends automatically when the value of n was 50. Okay, so we said that it should be less than 51, so you could see that automatically it stops at what, 50. Is that okay? All right, so let's just go with the second example, and that will be it for for loops. You would have to go and practice, study, and learn on your own. Try and repeat the same thing like I said earlier to the previous tutorials we did. Okay, good. So our next example is that we're going to create an object called num, and we're going to sequence numbers. We're going to sequence numbers 1 to 45. So we're sequencing numbers 1 to 45. So if I should print n, you would see that sorry, if I should print num, you see that we have numbers 1 to 45. So you could equally use this, or if you prefer to use 1 colon 45, you could go ahead. If you want to use the sec function as well, you could do that. Okay, so what we want to do is that we want to with these numbers we've sequenced, we want to multiply the numbers or the elements in the object called num. We want to multiply them by 500, and if that number is, let's say, less than 30, okay, it stops. So it means that we're going to multiply from 1 to 29. We're going to multiply them by a value of 500, and then the rest of the values remain unchanged. Okay, so we've created our object called num. Now let's call the syntax to work with. Okay, all right, so here in the condition we're saying that while, okay, the value in the num object is less than 30, something should be done. So that is what we need to write here. So while num, but num alone, okay, we can't say num alone because num alone is the whole of this thing. Okay, everything here. Is that okay? Everything here. So we'll need to subset. Okay, we'll need to pull out, we'll need to subset an entity in num. Okay, we'll need to pull out an entity in num. So we could go this way. So while num this, okay, this is how it's going to be. While num is less than 30, okay, what should be done? Okay, I'll come back to this, don't worry. So while num is less than 30, what should be done? We said we would like the value, so we're still going to subset that same particular value. We would like num that value to be multiplied by 500. Okay, to be multiplied by 500. um don't worry, you understand what I'm trying to do here. Good. So this is actually what we want to do. Okay, but the reason why I left these spaces here is because we need to we are going to subset, okay, and if we should subset, automatically we need the positions. If we're using the square bracket, we need the positions of those numbers. So since we are looking at numbers that are basically less than 30, it means that we need to create an object that would help us in subsetting. Okay, that would help us in subsetting. So I'm going to create an object called y. Okay, and y is going to be, the value of y is going to be 1. So value of y is 1. This is just to a starter, so an initial subset or an initial position number. Okay, this is what we're going to use. So we're going to put y here. Okay, I hope you guys are now seeing the picture. We're going to put y here. Okay, so that means if y is 1, okay, it's going to pull out the first position in the num object and compare it to see if it is less than 30. If it is less than 30, we said it should multiply by 500, meaning that we need to also include y here. So we're going to multiply that particular value by 500 and update its initial value to the updated value here, which here is also going to be y. Okay, just calm down. Okay, this is basically something we've done over and over again. Okay, so all we are saying is that we need an initial value to help us. Okay, we need an initial value to help us. So when we subset 1, okay, when we subset position 1, for instance, since I have, let me just run this and you see something. So the moment I run this, you see it will pull out the first value, which is 1. And once it pulls out this value, the while loop compares it to 30. If it is less than 30, this is going to be carried out. So that same value of 1 is going to be multiplied by 500, and then we will need to update its position now. So you would see that that is why I have this here. We're still subsetting the same thing and we are infusing that value into it. Okay, now that that is done, we now need to update the value of y so that it takes position 2, position 3, position 4, okay, till the subset becomes, or till the position becomes less than 30. So let's update the value of y. It's going to be y plus 1. So here we update the value of y. Okay, here we update the value of y, and over here we carry out the task. Okay, the head basically that is how I want to put it. We carry out the task. Okay, so now if I should run this, okay, and I call and I print the object num, okay, you would see that all values that are less than 30 have been multiplied by 500, and all values greater than 30 have been left the way they were. Okay, so this is where I want to end with you guys. Okay, having this basic understanding, I don't want to go further. Having this basic understanding try and carry out some few exercises with the other, let's say the grading of students, for instance. You could try your hands on it, or any other thing you want